All right, thank you for joining us today. I am so honored to have two very special guests joining Janine and I. I met these guys through another professional that I'm friends with, and I just love being able to network with other like-minded and like-hearted people. And so we connected right away, and I want to bring their story and what they're doing and how they're changing the world to our audience as well, because I think it's fantastic. And I'm so thrilled and honored to have them. I want you to meet Troy Amdahl and Dave Braun, also known as the Oola Guys. They're the co-authors of the Oola book series. Dave is the Oola Seeker and Troy the Oola Guru, as you can find them on Instagram. They're renowned experts in goal setting and creating a proper work-life balance. They crisscross the country, well, they used to, other than this particular year. They're normally crisscrossing the country in a 1970 VW surf bus, speaking to people, collecting their dreams in the form of handwritten stickers from people that they meet that cover the bus, and helping them find balance and growth in the 7 key areas of life, also known as the 7 F's of Oola, which we're going to talk about and share with you. By revealing how to remove the stress related life out of balance, they unlock the greatness that is inside every one of us. A better you makes a better family, a better community, and ultimately a better world. The Oola Guys are committed to changing the world with a word, which is Oola, and their simple yet life-changing message. And I can attest to that. In fact, the very fact that we're having this podcast is because of my own experience with Oola in particular. So I want to thank you guys for joining us. Thanks so much, Dr. Dave and Dr. Troy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So glad to be here.
Yeah. So let's jump right in and tell us a little bit about your story and how Oola came to be.
Actually, I'll just jump in and kind of talk. I don't want to go way back to 1997, but I'm going to have to start there a little bit just to give everybody up to speed. But let's break down Oola a little bit, because as a listener, you want to go, how can this impact my life? Like, what can I get out of this? Not, I don't want to hear about Dave and Troy. I want to know what I can get out of this. And what the Oola framework is, it's really it's a way to look at your life differently than the way other people are looking at their life or living their life. And it's by looking at your life through these 7 key areas: fitness, finance, family, field, which is your career, faith, friends, and fun. And then following the 3 simple steps, which is part of the Oola framework, which we're going to break down for you today. But where are you today? Where do you want to go? And how are you going to get there? Now, going back to my story, I met Dr. Troy in 1997, and I worked for him at the time. And this is what he did with me: is he said, hey, you just graduate, you got your doctorate. He said, now you're going to go try to crush business and you're going to want to win at money, but there's more to life. And you have to balance these 7 key areas. And he taught me about Oola in 1997, about balancing your life in these 7 key areas, making sure you have great relationships, make sure you're taking care of your health, make sure you're having fun in life, you're saving for the future, you're working on your faith, you're working on all 7 areas of your life. So I started following that in 1997, and I found a lot of success in my early 30s with the big house and the business and married and kids and running marathons and taking care of my health and very active in my church, all those things. But then I found that in 2007, 8, 9, went through the financial crisis. I lost a business, lost a house, ended up going through a divorce, and I found myself on the bottom. So I learned about Oola in 1997, had great success following the principles that we're going to be teaching today. Fell into the trap in 2007 of being overextended, lost everything in 2007, 8, 9. And then I started getting my Oola back. And at this time, Dr. Troy was retired when I called him from a motel and said, dude, I look amazing on Christmas pictures, but going through a bankruptcy, going through a divorce, losing everything. He was fully retired, living at his place in Arizona in the winter and his lake house in Minnesota in the summer, and one of his other houses around the world, married 20, 30. I don't know, how long are you married right now, dude?
31 years, man.
31 years. So at this time, he was married 20, 25 years, and kids, and running triathlons and Ironman, the whole deal. So he was living Oola, and I was completely out of Oola. And he said, man, you got to get back to the principles that we talked about in 1997. And I told him at that time, I said, I'm going to get back to these principles of Oola. And if they help me get out of the bottom, we're going to share this with the world. And he's like, yeah, cool, man, but you might want to get a car that drives and get a job first before you talk about sharing the principles with the world. So that was the next step. It was really, 2009, me taking those first steps to get my life put back together. And then in 2012, when things were better, we wrote the first book called Oola, and that launched this whole movement around the world about people working on getting their Oola life.
Cool. So how'd you come up with the name Oola?
It's actually Dave's idea. It was a great idea. We used to go. So what we used to do is a group of guys simply stepping out of the busyness of life, and we would go to Vegas always the first weekend in December. So we'd go there and goof off, but we would spend 2 days and we'd sit on the floor at the Hard Rock when there was a Hard Rock in Las Vegas. And we'd have these note cards, those old 3x5 recipe cards, those little note cards. This is pre-technology. And we still do it today, by the way. And we sat on the floor and put those note cards in stacks of 7. And we set goals, not just in the culture's definition of success. Culture will tell you to set 2 goals. They will say, how much money do you want to make and what is your career? And what we know is we've been punked as a culture to say success, you will feel fulfilled and successful if you make this much money, have this title, live in this neighborhood, drive that car. We know in studying people, that's simply not true. It's about key relationships. It's about your unique passion, not what your parents wanted for you or what your high school counselor wanted for you. It's like, what are your unique gifts and skills? So we broke away from culture and said, let's just 2 days a year sit down and set goals in all the areas of importance in our life to make sure that we're following our path, our unique purpose for our life. And it was super valuable. And it was this goal setting meeting in the 7 key areas that we did as a group of guys every year. And then throughout the year, we would keep each other accountable. We gave each other permission to speak truth into our life. Like, hey, you wanted to be out of debt. I just saw that you posted a picture of your new lease car. That's incongruent. Like, I'm calling you out and I have permission to call you out on that. So we'd have these meetings and we all achieved our definition of success, which is not just money and career, but family and fun and travel, whatever it was for us. And as it was growing, Dave, who's super like fun and creative, like, dude, these like goal setting meetings is the dumbest name ever for us to do this. And he said, what does it feel like when your life is, you're in that spot? Like the people you love, you feel close to. You're making enough money where you don't have to worry about the bills. You're actually doing work you love. You feel a part of something bigger than yourself. Like you have a purpose or a faith walk that feels strong. You're actually having joy and not kicking joy down the road. And he goes, ooh la la, like ooh la la. That's what it feels like. So we just cut it down to Oola, and we just started calling them Oola meetings and Oola gatherings and Oola goal setting. And it wasn't long after that people actually that we don't even know started tattooing Oola on their body as a reminder to live a life that's balanced and not get too distracted in the business life or whatever it is that they're distracted toward. And it's just taken off into this movement of people around the planet living these principles.
Wow. I see why you're the guru.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about in the 7 key areas of Oola. First of all, Dave, why don't you tell us what the 7 F's are again? And then Troy, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the green gap in the financial area. And then we're going to run into more of what this call is about and what this podcast is about, which is a side hustle. So go ahead, Dave. What are the 7 F's again?
Yeah, I'll break down the framework for you a little bit, looking at the 7 F's of Oola, the 3 simple steps of what are called blockers and accelerators. And that's going to give everybody a really good idea of how they can start, applying these principles into their life immediately after this podcast or watching on YouTube and saying, okay, this is how I can start to implement this into my life. But the 7 key areas that you have to always be watching are fitness, finance, family, field, which is your career, faith, friends, and fun. And we're all wired differently. Some people are going to be wired to they're all in on their family and they're all in on fun. Some people are all in on fitness and some people are all in on finance or business. But the reality is you have to be aware of all 7 areas. And that brings us to the 3 simple steps, which is, where are you in the 7 areas? You have to be very real with where you are in the 7 key areas. You can have all the money in the world. If your health is not doing great, you're not living a dual life. If your health is perfect, but you can't pay your bills and you're going to get kicked out of your house, you're not living your life. You're not living your full potential and your highest purpose. Then number 2 is you have to, once you know where you are, because to understand, where do you want to go? What are your dreams and goals? That's really the heart of Oola, is setting goals and taking steps every day towards your goals in these 7 key areas. And then step 3 is exactly that. It's how are you going to get there? What are the steps you're going to take every single day? We encourage people to take 3 steps a day towards their goals, which will lead you toward your dreams. And if you take 3 steps a day, that's over 1,000 steps a year towards your Oola life. You make huge change within a 1-year period. And then you're going to run into what are called blockers, which are like fear, guilt, self-sabotage, anger, laziness. But there's these amazing thing called accelerators, like love, gratitude, passion, wisdom, integrity. So that's really the framework. You look at your life and say, where am I in these 7 areas? Where am I going to go? How am I going to get there? What's going to stand in my way? Is it fear, guilt, self-sabotage? How can I overcome that? And what am I going to embrace to live a better life that has more purpose in it? Is it love, gratitude, passion, wisdom, or integrity? And then once you lock that formula in on what you want to do, you just move forward and start to implement that into your life.
Yeah, that framework is fantastic. I've seen and I've used it with several people, and it really is. I'm so glad that you guys created it together and used that exercise that you went through with the guys in December in Vegas to help come up with this is the way to do it. Because so many people do not know how to set goals and have lost the ability to dream, and so that is really effective, and I highly recommend it too. So let's talk about the finance one, Oola finance, that key area. In that key area, you talk a little bit about the green gap. Tell us just a little bit about the green gap, but one of the things you also recommend is that in the green gap of achieving what you want in your finances, one option is having a side hustle to be able to fill in some. Just tell us a little bit about that whole thing, the green gap, and how that weaves together.
Yeah,
And
so I totally get it in the fact that I know many people are listening to this, but some people are watching this on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, over my right shoulder is a 1970s VW bus that Dave and I have traveled to 48 states. It's now covered 26 layers in handwritten dreams. Many of those dreams are financial stress. It's like I have student loans. I owe my parents money. I just need to pay my medical bills. It's people struggling financially. And you mentioned it, that people struggle setting goals. That's why Oola's a movement. That's why Oola works, because it's such an easy to follow framework. It's a framework to create a life of balance, growth, and purpose. It's something you can follow. That's why people like frameworks. It's like a checklist. 8% of the people hitting their goals, that means 92% of them don't, and they just end up frustrated. So on that bus, a lot of those stickers are green stickers, which are financial stickers, and it's dealing with debt. That was my story. I mean, people go back when we get interviewed, like, how did this goal setting thing even start? It even goes before 1997. I remember being in 11th grade, bored in whatever class it was in, history or something I'm never using today. I was like daydreaming and looking at a piece of paper and thinking about the stress that my dad provided for 4 kids in a very middle-class family, and he worked 3 jobs to do it. And he never complained, and we felt loved. But I just thought there has to be a different way. Like, there has to be something different, because I never saw my dad. I spent most of my time with my older brother, who taught me how to golf and play football and do the things, because my dad was working all the time. I'm like, I don't know if that looks like what I want to do. So on that day, bored in class, I grabbed a pen and I wrote, I want to be debt free and retired by the time I'm 40. Now think how nerdy that is for an 11th grader. But I always had this vision, like, I want to do that. And I never lost sight of it. And that, by the way, is the sweet spot of Oola, is never lose sight of your dreams. There were seasons between when I set that goal and when it happened that I drifted, but I never lost sight of that dream. And it took me until 42. But eventually at age of 42, I was able to retire completely debt free and do what I wanted to do. And I moved to Arizona. We have houses other places, and we just traveled and spent time with the kids, which was my goal. So we did that. How we did that was with what's called the Oola Green Gap. And it's really simply, again, another framework to follow of how you can get out of debt. And the beautiful thing about it is it's perfect for people that want to not only get out of debt, but at the same time build up an investment portfolio and also give themselves permission to spend a little too along the way. Because I know that there's these scorched earth plans out there to get out of debt. The reality is, if I'd have sat down with my wife, we had $755,000 in debt at our peak. If I'd have sit down and said, hey, baby, we're going to just like pay off this debt, and you're going to we're going to have to eat at home for the next 3 years and never take a trip. I mean, our kids were young. We have 4 kids. They were young. We wanted to travel. We wanted to create memories. We wanted to go to eat, go to movies, not excessively, but sometimes. And the Green Gap allowed us to do that. Again, reduce debt, watch our investment portfolio go up, which gave us security that we're going to be okay, and also gave us permission to spend a little along the way. And it was effective. And part of that Green Gap formula is exactly what you're talking about, Laura. It's saying that if the last 12 months has taught us anything, it's taught us that we need diversification. In investments, we're told that all the time, like you need stocks and whatever. but you need diversification in your income, because who could have seen furloughing and who could have seen layoffs? No one saw this coming. So when you put, that was the generation my parents were in, is like, you have one job, you go there at age 20, you work there for 40 years, they give you a watch at age 60 and we call it good. Like that's what everyone did. That's old thinking. Even in my own life, I have multiple streams of income, and that's protecting me and my family. Meaning that if this one goes away, I still have 7 others, I'm going to be okay. If those 2 go away, I still have whatever, 5 or 6 others, I'm going to be okay. It's going to hurt. It's just not going to take me out. So the whole point of the green gap is to reduce your expenses and increase your income, which makes a big gap. And then you can apportion that gap to debt reduction, investment, and fun, which is what the green gap is. But part of that is, so many people focus on, well, if I cut cable, that saves me $50 a month. If I save $50 a month and I have to pay off $755,000 in debt, the amortization table doesn't go that far. I mean, I'm long dead. So I had to find ways to increase my income, because that was the way I could really make some traction on that big mess I created in my life.
So, so do you all recommend that people get an additional job? Or, I mean, so where I'm going with this, obviously, is we're talking about MLM and network marketing. And it's such a great resource, in my opinion, for people that are already super busy doing what they're doing. And I'm just wondering how you all feel about network marketing. And is that something that you recommend to people ever?
I can start with that, and then I'll have Troy bumper that a little bit. But it's really an interesting thing, because when we look at the 7Fs, Troy talks a lot about finance and the green gap and getting out of debt. But then he talks about, when you're working on getting out of debt, you want a big shovel, which is increasing your income, getting multiple streams of income. And I know Troy has properties and has other ways to get passive income and active income, etc. And we wrote the first book. The book came out. We started getting asked to speak for multiple companies, and we started to work with other companies. And in that, we started being introduced to MLM for the first time. And I've never done an MLM. I don't think Troy's ever done an MLM, but looking at the power of an MLM, it's an amazing way to create a second or third or fourth line of income. So if you have your main job and then you have rental property, or you have your main job and another side job, but a way to really create a great income stream. And I don't even want to say passive, because you have to work at it. You have to go build it. It's like a business, but it's such a great way to build a home-based business that can add into a second stream of income and maybe become your main stream of income. I think it's incredible. So I think the model of it works incredibly. I think the power behind it to help people is just remarkable. So again, no experience directly in it, working with tens of thousands of people, over hundreds of thousands of people actually, that we've been on stages of network marketing companies and seen and talking to them. I would say on the bus Troy was talking about, there's a lot of stickers about hitting certain ranks in MLM companies, because we spoke around the world with MLM companies. There's just a lot of power in a great way to create a side hustle that can turn into a part-time career, that can turn into a full-time career. But I would say, like, advice on that I've seen would be really taking it serious, really running that like a business, like invest time into it. I had a job when Oola first came out. Oola wasn't my job. It was my second job. And I worked hard until 2, 3 in the morning, many times, till it became my primary job. And that would be my advice. I see the most successful people in a multi-level marketing business get into it as a part-time thing, but they work it, and then they build into a full-time thing. And then the income potential is just unreal, once you get rolling in that.
So is your plan, is your coaching program, is all of this a good fit for network marketers then, would you think?
Well, I mean, it's goal setting at the core. So, I mean, if you're going to really succeed in this business, like Dave is talking about, I actually think we have a super interesting perspective on network marketing, because we have been around it continually, but never directly in it. And I'm actually, I don't know, is there such a thing as an optimistic skeptic? Meaning, like, I'm a positive thinker, but I'm always analyzing things. And I've actually learned over our 7 years of hanging around network marketers that I've learned to really respect it. But I also understand that it takes work. And what Dave is saying is completely true. So if you can just like wash off the fluff and the hype, and you drill down to the core opportunity, it is there. I made a chunk of my money in real estate, in investment real estate. And if you think about it, if every $250,000 rental property yields $1,500 a month in rent, if I want to create $6,000 of income, I need $1 million in my hand to buy those properties. And I have to pay taxes before I get that $1 million in my hand, and my personal expenses before. That's a lot of, that's a lot to be able to hold $1 million in your hand to be able to generate $6,000. We know people personally that we've run into that have put dreams on the bus, who have entered this profession with very small entry money and have made a business out of it. But we also speak at a lot of these events, and we sit back in the green room like we're coming up next to speak, and you hear some things from people speaking ahead of us. And I remember once, I don't know who said it, but this guy was up there and he's like, if you want to succeed in network marketing, this is probably common knowledge to your audience, but I thought it was mind blowing. But he's like, if you want to succeed in this, if you treat it like a hobby, you're going to get paid like a hobby. But if you treat it like a business, you'll get paid like a business. And I have seen that firsthand, where people pour into this and they look at it like a business, and they look at it as, I'm in the business to develop people and create team. My suggestion, on top of Dave's suggestion, which is Dave's suggestion, is you have to treat it like a business. My suggestion is make sure it's linked to a product you love. Because I see people so enamored with the opportunity that they communicate in a way that isn't passionate enough for the other person to accept. You have to, in my opinion, like, I can sit knee to knee with anyone and tell them the need for Oola because I know it works. I've seen it in my own life. I'm a product of this product. I know what it means for my family and my life. And I want everyone to be doing this on the planet because I know this framework works. We've seen it hundreds of thousands of times across the world. So I can do that. I've seen some people pitch us, by the way, on a product, and they're like, and you can tell that they don't own it. So I know that your audience is all over the board as far as the companies they're with. That would be my suggestion, is find a product that you are just deeply passionate about. And then also make sure that you're willing to put in the work to make it happen.
Great advice. So where are you going with Oola? What's the future for Oola?
I could jump on that a little bit too, and I'm really digging the interview that we're going through right now with the MLM part of this, because of what Troy said is so cool, that we have such a unique perspective on MLMs, because we weren't in the audience raving about the product. We were behind the scenes in the green room talking to the owners of all these companies and just in networking that way. There is that treat it like a hobby, get paid like a hobby. There is, you have to love the product. All that stuff is so very true. And what Troy said about Oola, just like we're so in on Oola because it's mission driven. It's changing the world with the word. We want to impact 1 billion lives in the next 7 years. Our dream on that bus is collect 1 million dreams, feed 1 million children. So we have this big vision of it. And what happened, how this all came about, is Troy and I, for the last 7 years, 3 books have been out there. We've been speaking, doing our thing, collecting dreams, all 48 states in the bus, which has been a blast. But ultimately on the bus, we're talking about how do we use the power of Oola to change lives everywhere globally. And we can get on a plane and we can fly to Singapore, which we have in Mexico City and Dubai and Abu Dhabi, whatever. And you speak to a group and then you leave and it drops a seed. But how do we really grow this? And we realized a couple of years ago that we're going to need help. We're going to need help from people. So about a year ago, we actually started certifying people to be certified Oola life coaches. And they get certified in the process, and then they're allowed to coach people through this framework, which when we started off, and Laura knows this firsthand too, is we really said, how can we disrupt this whole industry? Because even the life coaching industry is a little weird. You know, you get that little negative connotation towards MLM, you have a little negative connotation towards life coaching. How can we come in and make it cool and make it real and help people get results and help them look professional? So we spent quite a while building it. It launched last year. But that's a big part of where we're going, is the coaches call themselves the Oola Army, but we're building this army, coaches in all 50 states, I think 17 countries now as it's continuing to grow. And a lot of people from multiple network marketing companies are joining as coaches because, again, it's another stream of income. So they can run their MLM business. They can be a Oola life coach. So that's a big part of it. But ultimately, Janine, like, our goal is to go impact 1 billion lives over the next 7 years. And we have a way we're going to measure it. It's called a Q score. We want to be able to walk into a shisha bar in Dubai and say how many people have heard of Oola, and 1 in 7 raise their hand, and we can walk into a tea shop in Japan and say how many people have heard of Oola, and 1 in 7. We want 1 billion people, 1 in a 7 people in the world to know about Oola. So we have a lot of plans rolling out over the next 2021, but also over the next 7 years to do that. And the foundational level starts with the Oola coaching program.
Oh, I love that. What a great vision.
It's funny because I, as we're watching this on Zoom, if you're watching this on YouTube, and I see everyone kind of smile when Dave says one affect 1 billion people, we have a thing in Oola that to dream big. I mean, you dream your biggest dream, and then you write it down and you look at it, and then you tear it up and dream bigger. And we always say internally, when people are laughing at our dream, we know we're on the right track. Like when you say 1 billion people, and we are dead serious about that. Like we've gotten so laser focused. We actually got a little distracted in the fact that people want to buy t-shirts and hats. We sell tens of thousands of hats with the word Oola on it. It's like, we're not a garment company. I mean, all that stuff's great. It's a reminder to live properly with a proper work-life balance and live fully to your God-given potential. So, I mean, we get that, but we're all about this framework. Like we are on the planet to make the world better by using this framework to help everyone, like you and the people you love, create a life of balance, growth, and purpose, period. Like that is why we're here. And we know the framework does that. So we've actually drilled down next year and we're all about that. We know that when people apply these principles, Laura's a prime example. She stepped outside the craziness of life and said, you know what I want to do? I want to have a killer podcast. And she bravely pursued that thing that was pulling inside of her that before was being pushed down by life or whatever. And it's like, if we can do that for everyone, say, hey, you have a unique purpose inside of you. Our job is to remove the clutter and the self-doubt and whatever's holding you back and give you the tools by this framework that you can boldly pursue who you're intended to be with all of your uniqueness. That will put a light into the world that we need desperately right now. And that not only changes you as an individual, the people around you will absorb that light and they will become better. And so will the community and so will the world. So we are up late, up early, thinking of ways to get this framework in people's hands so they can live better.
So when I said 1 billion people, you guys laughed at me, huh?
They were giggling at that a little bit. They were just
wow.
They're like,
no.
No,
Hey,
no, just more chips on my shoulder, man.
So,
Let's go, Laura. Let's go.
This is it. This is interesting. So before Oola started,
don't let us take over your show, Troy. Don't let us
I'm just gotta bring it. This is so perfect. Before Oola started, and we're like, hey, this works, man. Like it helped Dave achieve success in all 7 areas. Drifted from Oola, lost everything, like a country western song, right? Re-engaged to Oola and got his Oola back. And he's like, we need to share it with the world. At that point, I had a Hotmail email account, no Facebook account, no Twitter, no anything. I was like that. So at this point, we can pull up our analytics and see millions of people seeing the word Oola every month, just in Facebook. So if we can go from 0 to, we have 1 million people actively following that bus on a regular basis. If we go to 0 to 1 million, we can go 1 million to 1 billion. And just like we can pursue our dreams, so can you. And that seems bold and weird. We actually included, you should include this in your show notes if you can, you guys. But if you go to oolalife.com/whitepaper, we shared our secrets on how we grew Oola from 0. Literally, the first time Dave got asked to speak, they gave him a sandwich. I didn't even go because I didn't want a sandwich. And then now we get paid $50,000 to speak. We couldn't write a paper in college, and then we had a multi-book deal with the original publisher of Chicken Soup for the Soul. So like, how did we go from, that's why people doubt themselves. If it's in network marketing, they see the person wearing the crown at the highest rank and go, that's not me. How do you know? How do you know? Why don't you push away your self-doubt? If that's something that's tugging at you, that's probably your purpose saying, you're designed for more. You're designed for better. Why don't you quiet the noise around you of the people who have failed at their own dreams and pursue yours? I mean, just boldly go. We're going to boldly go get 1 billion people. We got 2 more today, right here. Laura and Janine, boom. Just like that. We're too closer to 1 billion. And we're not going to stop until we're done.
Can I jump in one time? And I'm sorry, I won't do this anymore. But when Troy said, you got to watch the person on stage and saying, hey, I can be a leader just like that too. One of the things when I was at the bottom, like literally in a motel, literally the cops busting down the door next to me, and I like called Troy 2 in the morning. I'm like, my life's a mess. Like I need help. And he goes, get back to the Oola principles. And I went up in the mountains the next day and I was writing in my notebook, okay, like what do I want for my job? What do I want for my life, my family? And I came down and I had it. I called Troy and I'm like, dude, we're going to change the world with this word. We're going to share Oola everywhere. That's my mission. He's like, okay, cool. But first, get a job, get a car that runs, all that. So here's the other thing, because we see this all the time. This is a great thing for an MLM audience, is that we see people going like, they just started and they're like, I'm going to be a Royal Crown Diamond. I'm going to be the top of the list. I'm going to be the Servant Hartley, whatever it is. I'm going to be that person in 6 months. It's like, you have to take steps and get there. So work it like a process, work through it, the career path that is going to lead you to where you want to go. But don't lose sight of that big vision. Don't lose the hope and don't lose the purpose of what you're doing, but take those action steps every single day. Grind, 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 lift your head up, grind, 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 lift your head up. And eventually you're going to be where you want to be at the top.
Yeah, I love that. And I just love your generosity. I mean, sharing that journey, because people see the glory, but they don't know the story. And a lot of times people think that things are just an overnight success, whether it's in this business or in any kind of business that takes off, or your followers that have taken off. So the fact that you share the white paper, which we'll absolutely put in the show notes, we'll also put some of your other free resources. You've got the life balance quiz that someone can take, and other things like that we'll put in there, so that folks can, I'm sure that it's piqued the interest for anyone that has not heard of Oola already, for those extra followers that we get from this broadcast. And we want them to be able to connect with you and to find you as well. As we wrap up, we've got a couple of just fun questions that we like to end with. One of them is, tell us, and each of you answer this. So Dave and Troy, each of you, tell us just something that you love, like something that's making your life easier. It could be a gadget, it could be a book, it could be a gift. What is something that you are loving in your life today? And then we're going to close with, where do you like to give back to? You referenced it a little bit more earlier, but we'd love for you to talk a little bit more. We believe that people who generate also are generous. And we'd love to hear more about what those causes are to you. So first, what's something that you love, Dave?
Oh my gosh, I love this question so much. It just makes me smile because I love the weirdest things. I love my AirPods. I have them in right now. I love my AirPods. I love Viore sweatpants. Troy introduced me to them. It's the most amazing thing on the planet. It doesn't, you got yours on right now. They don't get more stretchy. And then I love my avocado peeler, and it's amazing. It's $5 on Amazon. It's unbelievable. So those are three things. Like, I love those things. I use them every day.
Awesome.
Troy, I want to hear your list. We just talked about this.
You just took mine. I'm literally, as simple as it comes, these Viore sweats. The title of the white paper we're referencing is How Two Guys with No Experience Grew a Multi-million-dollar Lifestyle Brand in Their Sweatpants. We literally have. I mean, this is just how we do it. We just roll with it. And that was in uncomfortable sweatpants when we wrote that. Now we got Viores, which we don't get paid anything from them, and they're not cheap. They're like $80 for sweatpants, but I would pay double because they're that comfortable. And where we give back, this hasn't come up, but we also own an organic tea company. I don't know if you guys even knew that, but every bag of tea provides a meal to a child in need. And this is the part that's so cool about that. There's all kinds of give back programs, but not only do we provide a meal to a child in need in 8 countries, we've done hundreds of thousands of meals already, but that child is then told that we believe in them and we love them and their dream matters. And they collect their dream and it goes on that bus. It goes on our bus. So it becomes full circle. It's not like, here's some food. It's like you actually, we want everyone to be connected to their dreams around the globe. So you'll see that everything, other than the sweatpants really don't fit, but everything comes back to this framework. Everything comes back to giving people access to this framework in a way that helps them create a life of balance, growth, and purpose.
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome.
All right, Janine and Laura, I have to do this. I'm sorry, but what's your one thing? What's your one little thing that you guys just love so much? I just need to know.
Oh, well, I thought you were going to ask what my breakthrough goal is. And I'm going to go ahead and share that too, because I just recently went through a year in review exercise with you guys, which was fantastic. And so my breakthrough goal from the year in review, which I think is my one thing to encourage folks to do, and that I loved, taking the time, investing the time in myself to spend the time to ask myself the questions and then ask myself the questions again about the year in review. And what I came out of the year in review with of 2020 and headed into 2021, my breakthrough goal is I'm writing a book. So I'm super excited
That's
about
awesome. Very cool.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Oh, I did not know that. It's like giving birth. I'll tell you, writing a book is not for sissies.
Yes.
So my one thing I think is going to be the avocado peeler. I cannot wait to check that out. I love avocados, but I didn't know there was a peeler.
Janine, I'm one click away. I'm one click away from making your dream come true. Like an $8. Like that could, if that's what I can do is make your dream come true with one click and $8, I'm happy to do that.
Oh, I'm excited.
Janine's Oola one is much easier than Laura's Oola one.
Yeah. Well, I am hoping that, and I know Dave and I've talked about this before, but you know, I live down here in Charleston, Isle of Palms. I know you guys have been here before.
Yep.
I see the VW buses all around here. I don't know what the deal is. I guess it's the beach, but I see them all around at restaurants and at coffee shops and at other locations. And every time I do, I think of you two. I think of you two and your dream and reaching 1 billion people, reaching the world, changing the world with one word, with Oola. So you've got an open invitation. Come down here and visit sometime.
We'd love it. Actually,
love
the
it.
first dreams, that bus is 26 layers in dreams. The very first dream is under the driver's side handle. It says change the world with the word Oola. And we said, if we could go back again, if we had a mulligan, if we had a do-over, we'd peel back 26 layers and we'd add one word, and that's together. It's people like you, Laura and Janine. It's people like the certified coaches. It's like people who follow Oola, who just want a better life and they want to live differently. We're just grateful to be part of this community in some small way.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time with us today.
Thank you.
Again, we'll have all of the ways to connect with the Oola guys and the framework of Oola in the show notes. So thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Bye.